Reef in a bowl. This seals nice and tight, like a canister filter. This is the beginning. This is my brain, how it works, and what a mess. Welcome to the inside of my brain. Let me explain what I'm talking about here. I've had this in the corner of my space for a while now and just been waiting to pull the trigger. Been wanting to do myself a little nano pico reef in a bowl. And just to kind of go over the way my brain works, I'm all over the place. Filtration, immediately my first thought for filtration, of course, because I come from a little bit of a freshwater situation, I love the sponge filter. And look at this little bitty sponge filter. It's so tiny. That would be so perfect in there, huh? Of course, we'd have to glue it down or maybe even use a magnet. There's a little bit of a dimple on this side. I could put a magnet that would just hold it down nice and steady. It's got all these little tubes. I mean, look at the tiny little tube that it comes with. That's so skinny. Like, here's an airline. No, that's not an airline tube. Here's an airline tube. I would say it's about half the size of this airline tube. But it comes with a little diverter because one of the air pumps that I'll probably be using doesn't fit on that hose. So you got to use one of these bad boys. Put that on there, you put that on there. And it comes with a little stone inside as well. So you can just bubble filter. Sand, no sand, I don't know. So that's the filter water movement situation. And next, I use this in the winter time when I'm hatching brine shrimp, and works out really well. It has a little pico heater. You can dial in the temperature here. Once you dial it in, of course, we'll use one of these temperature things just to make sure we're dialed in. And I'll double check it with the big tank out there. So what I'm thinking is something like, originally I was thinking of something like this, right? Where you've got the heater and the bubbles coming up, and it's all coming up in one chamber. But this, the heater just barely fits in there, so I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. I'm going to test it out. I prefer to use the small one. Now this, believe it or not, oops, this comes from those solar LED lights, those outdoor solar LED lights, you know, where you shove them in the ground. You put a little spike on the end of this, and the spike goes in the ground, and the solar light goes up on top. I just happen to have a bunch of these because a bunch of my solar lights went bad, and so I'll probably cut that. But I also did stop by the depot and pick that. This is kind of big though, with this little tank. One of my other thoughts was to, I originally got it for this guy. Look at that. That would be a sweet little setup for a pico tank. It's got to be at least a gallon, I would say, in there. This might be a gallon. Now, one of the other thoughts that I had was to make, instead of using the sponge filter, I could almost have this everything out of there, and basically this seals nice and tight like a canister filter. So if I had my heater in there, my pump in there, and I took some airline tubing and I'm fitting it the wrong way. Instead of fitting on the outside, I'm fitting it on the inside. See that there? So that way it'll constrain the amount of water, because I don't want too much turnover for this tiny little tank. So I'll get myself a little something to hang on there. Here's the top that I printed out for it. This was originally going to be a terrarium, and I've got a little LED in there. You can't see it from where you're at, but I can put some holes in the top of this, maybe in the side like that, right next to this wire, and so that would be supplying water. And since this is going to be airtight, as soon as it's pushing water out, it's going to be wanting to suck something in. So we will have another airline tube that'll be in here. So basically this is going to have two tubes, one going in, one coming out. And one of them will be on a diverter, and the other one will be dropped down below the tank like that. So that way we get some circulation going. And I'm liking this idea a lot, because it also secretly, well, not so secretly, gives me some extra water volume, which is one of the things that kind of suffers in nano tanks. Another way, in addition to putting the thermometer out here, since the water flow is not going to be huge, I'm going to be keeping track of what the temperature of the water is in here, and whether or not this has to be super, super hot in order to keep this at the temperature it needs to be. So another thing to do is to get one of those reptile mats that you can put in, that they sell. It's basically like a heat pad, and you can tie both of these into one of those Wi-Fi temperature regulators. But if I was to do that, basically you'd have a mat on the ground and you'd have like hot air escaping everywhere, right? So I'd take something bigger than this, some sort of platform where I could hide the heater inside, and so the heat would be in there, and I would maybe insulate the bottom with cork, put the heater, and then build something around it that would look kind of cool, that would hold this little goldfish bowl. That's the other thing. I'm going to be putting one little tiny saltwater goldfish in here. But we'll see if that happens. If I can get the canister filter to work and get some extra water volume and then stabilize the water conditions, then maybe I'll be able to add a tiny little baby saltwater goldfish. But we'll see how it goes. So that's what I say. We're basically going to have one wire and two hoses. And so they might just kind of be... I want to try the sponge filter though, because I really like sponge filters. But then that means the heater has to go in there if I do that. Man, decisions. So I'm all over the place, right? So I've got this, got that. What else am I missing here? Lighting. This light is not enough for a reef tank. This was going to be for the terrarium, and it does grow kind of ish. It grows plants that don't really care about light too much. That you might as well have them in the shade. So I'm thinking maybe snapping some of this off and just having a little bit of that be in there. But I also do have a couple of LEDs on the way, some 3-watt royal blue and a white, and maybe I'll even add a green and a red one in there too. Oh, and ultraviolet. So I have royal blue, ultraviolet, and white coming on the way. So that should be enough to grow corals, right? At least softies, because I'm not going to be putting any acros in here or anything like that. So I'm all over the place with, if I'm buying a little LED and making my own light, then I have to drive it. So I've got stuff laying around the house. I can drive it with this. One of the ways that I like to drive LEDs, though, is to just give them the exact voltage. And I've got like 30 or 40 of these little power supplies lying around the house from all the various projects I've had over the years. So I know I can find, like this one here is 4.5 volts. This one here is 6 volts. So if I put a couple of those in series, or if I just run them all in parallel, as long as I have 3 volts and 9 watts. Am I going to need 9 watts? Start doing some math on this. Anyway, I'll find just a power supply that matches the LEDs that I'm going to put in there, so that way I don't have to add a little pulse width modulation to unless I want to dim them, right? Oh, I did see something online. There was a controller that you can use with the Wi-Fi. Something like 30 bucks. If I decided I want to splurge and I want to put this whole thing on a timer, I do have a timer on my power strip, which is Wi-Fi, and you can turn it on and off whenever you want. But if I wanted to get the sunrise and sunset effect in a little nano, they have these little controllers for RGB. You can control, I think it's 4 or 5 different colors individually on the app with your phone. So that would be kind of cool. If I got to get the whole thing stabilized and working first, and I'll probably just get those LEDs in there, get a couple of, maybe just some Xania in here and see if Xania at GSP, for goodness sake. Maybe some clove polyps, huh? Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I put those in there and see if I can get it stabilized, get some of the live rock in there, and test, and see where I'm at, monitor the temperature, and see what happens. This is the beginning. This is my brain, how it works, and what a mess. Spicy Reef here, signing off.
Now what are you doing?
I think I got it.
How do you know if it's up or down?
I was wondering why that ball kept getting bigger, and then it hit me. That was awkward.
So bad. Yeah.